Good evening. Welcome to the annual Electors meeting for 2025. I declare the meeting open at 5:35 p.m. Welcome City of Subiaco councillors and staff. Welcome Electors. It wouldn't be an Electors meeting without you, and as far as I'm concerned, any engagement is good engagement, so you're all welcome. Normally I'd acknowledge that, oh yeah, there he is. He's not at his normal table. Welcome media too. On behalf of the City of Subiaco, I acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of this area, and I recognise their ongoing connection to our land and waterways here in Subiaco. The main purpose of this meeting is to discuss the contents of the annual report and the audited financial statements for 2024 and 2025. However, we will also respond to questions submitted prior to the meeting and taken from the floor, and we'll discuss any other general business, which means there's an opportunity to move motions. Please note this meeting's being live streamed and recorded, and by being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. And if you haven't already, please make sure you've signed in with our staff member to record your name and address on the attendance register. Having said that, I think we've probably recorded most people's names and personal details. I will acknowledge the current councillors in the room, our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Powell, Councillor Rosemary DeVries, Russell Jones, Councillor Bridget Pine, Councillor Mark Burns, Councillor Penny O'Connor, Councillor Danny Fife, and we've got an apology from Councillor Nicola Johnston. Staff in attendance, the main one to acknowledge, I think, is our CEO, Mr. Colin Cameron, who's joining me up here. There's certainly a number of former elected members here as well, so welcome to you. And I think I've seen two former mayors. Welcome Helen Passmore, it's been a while, and welcome Tony Costa as well, the former mayor of Subiaco. There's no others hiding, is there? No, just the two. Okay, I've covered apologies, one from Councillor Johnston. I haven't received any others. We'll go straight to announcements. Most of us are here to talk about the civic precinct, I suspect, but there is an annual report and financial statements which we're going to ask the meeting to accept as well. And as I've said in my message at the front of that annual report, the past year has been one of momentum and achievement for the City of Subiaco. And the pages of that annual report tell a story that this is a city positioned to tackle some ambitious future plans. And so we should be, because we're not just coasting, we're following a clear strategic direction that's now set out in the council plan for 2025 to 2035. It was endorsed earlier this year following substantial amounts of community consultation. And it's based on 5 pillars: connected community, flourishing environment, livable places, thriving economy, and a leading organisation. It's our roadmap for the next decade. And what these pillars really mean for you, the residents and ratepayers, should be evident when you look through the pages of the annual report. It's about community and culture when we see record crowds at things like Sunset at Subi, the free concert series throughout Subiaco, which is now in its 37th season. It's about economic activation with things like the new Space Market partnership that's activating vacant shop fronts on Rockby Road and Hay Street. It's about the public realm and infrastructure with Forest Walk upgrades, for example, and the creation of the new Bagot Road Pocket Park. It's also about sustainability as we continue to plant between 300 and 400 trees across our city each year. And it's about traffic and pedestrian improvements as we progress initiatives such as speed reductions to 40 kilometres per hour in local streets as a joint project with our neighbours in the other inner city councils. It's all there, it's all in the annual report. And the way we do things here is to do as much as possible for you, the community, in a way that does not leave you with an unfair rates bill. The budget for 25-26 was balanced and forward-thinking. The rates increase was held at 1.9%, the 7th consecutive year of restraint. We've kept comfortably below inflation, even though the city's own costs continue to rise. And yet we still managed to budget $22.1 million for key projects in 2025-2026, because prudent financial management means that we can afford major projects without compromising affordability or services. Now, speaking of major projects, there is one, of course, that the city wants to see through with this community's support. I won't beat around the bush. We're talking about the civic precinct redevelopment. Let's be clear, it's an investment in this community. It's not a pet project by anyone's definition. We're not talking about a new racetrack, for example. We're talking about a civic precinct. So please work with us. This is a council and a staff who have runs on the board. According to the Market Community Scorecard, the community survey that we take most years and which benchmarks our performance and community perceptions against other local governments here and in other states, we've gone from historical lows a few years back. Never forget that. But now we've gone to the highest scores that this city has ever received, or this council and staff have ever received since the city of Subiaco started participating in the scorecard about 14 or 15 years ago. So when we put things out for consultation, please take the opportunity, tell us what you think. If you've provided that feedback already, thank you. If you haven't yet, please do so that we can deliver for you. In closing, it's been a good year for the city of Subiaco. In fact, last year was a good year too, and the one before that and the one before that were good years for this local government also. So thank you, councillors and staff, both current and recently former. Thank you for playing your role, and we're always appreciative to the CEO, his executive managers and staff members who also play your roles in the city's success. With 2025 fast coming to a close, it's been a job well done, so thank you everyone. Okay, now it's the time for public participation in this meeting. The annual report for 2024-25. Most of you will have a hard copy already. The annual report and financial statements include the Mayor's report, the CEO's report and the Auditor's report, all submitted to you for your consideration. Those were approved by the Council at our Ordinary Council meeting for December last week. Okay, so the motion that I'm looking to move and have carried is that the annual report and audited financial statements for 2024-25 are received. If there's a mover and a seconder, I think we can put that motion to the vote. I think I recognise that gentleman. I think his name's Mark Tonti of Salisbury Street and Peter McDonald of Onslow Road. Two well-known faces in these chambers. Thank you both. Okay, I think we can put that straight to the vote then, electors. All those in favour? Show of hands, please. Anyone against? Okay, it looks to me like the motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we will move to public questions and motions. Public questions may be asked by electors of the city and must relate to matters that affect the city of Subiaco. Those who've submitted questions prior to the meeting will be given preference in determining the order of speakers, and we received 7 public questions prior to tonight's meeting. So we'll start with them and then we'll see if there's any remaining questions from the floor. We'll begin with Linda Rogers of Park Street, Subiaco, with 2 questions. Thank you.
Mayor, CEO, staff, other residents. First of all, I'd like to thank the young staff lady who rang me late this afternoon to say she needed to change my statement to a question. I have just come out of the shower and she was extremely kind and really helped me. Can't remember her name at the second, but I really do want to congratulate her. It was exceptionally kind of her. Okay, so question number 1. I want to ask a question about the removal of many of the rubbish bins across the city. When I rang the council earlier in the year, I was told many of the bins would soon be replaced. They have not been adequately replaced in my area, specifically Axon and Bagot Road, Townsend and Hay Street, Park and Bedford Street. As well, it's annoying to buy lunch and eat outside in the postal area mall and then find no bins. These are really important amenities to the city. maybe they're more important to me because I've suddenly become older, and carrying stuff around the city like lunch or doggy bags, it's very distressing to find all of those bins missing. So when will they be restored?
Thanks for the question. Just for everyone's benefit, the majority of these questions relate to things which I think the CEO and his staff are across. We employ about 200 staff, give or take, to take care of these types of things. So the staff have put in the time to prepare responses in a pretty detailed, specific kind of way for most of the questions tonight. So in relation to most of the questions, I'll probably be asking the CEO to answer them. He's drawing on advice which has been put together by his directors and managers. But CEO, if you'd like to ask the first question.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. Certainly we have removed several of the older street bins. It was predominantly due to their poor design, so it allowed birds easy access to the food scraps, which made a mess. And the open top design made the bins prone to both illegal dumping, and also the shape of the openings directed rainfall into the bins. So the design was not ideal, and that would make them quite heavy and not ideal in terms of workplace health and safety in terms of when they were being emptied. We replaced them with strategically located solar compactor bins, as you'd be aware, and they can hold around 5 times the volume of the standard bins. Being fully enclosed, it prevents all the same issues in terms of bird scavenging and rainwater ingress and the illegal dumping. So it's sort of a more sustainable solution, and also allows us in real time to monitor the level and determine the best time to actually empty the bins. So we've got solar bins located on the corner of Hay Street and Townsend Road and Rockaby Roads, and at the corner of Postal Walk. We hadn't at this point in time anticipated to install any more, but I'll be happy to have a chat to you later in terms of areas where you consider appropriate.
Would be good, particularly Bedford. Rubbish left. It's very distressing. All right, second area of question, and I've only just looked at this now. I'm not particularly in favour of the current vision of the new council house. Specifically, I do not believe a coffee shop or full kitchen is needed. Instead, local businesses are within 20 to 50 metres of council house, and we should be supporting local businesses. I also believe the new room for the council chamber is too small. To me, it virtually says residents are not welcome. I agree people can live stream, but often residents want to come together to discuss and hear the opinions of other residents and council. Having room for maybe 12 or 16 people, which is what the drawing seems to imply, I believe is very insufficient. The council room itself should be easily accessible for people with children, or for the elderly, or people with disabilities. A lift will have to be required. And that room, the council chamber, the room where much of our lives as residents is discussed, should have easy access and egress on the ground floor. I'm happy to expand on this, but I believe the current structure is actually anti-democratic and not in the community spirit of Subiaco. Space defines and shapes communication. This fails in being welcoming to the public. Has any of this been considered?
Thank you. CEO.
Yeah, thanks again for the question. And just if I could remind, and I've been meeting with a lot of people, and it's something that perhaps is misunderstood. So council developed the concepts and the actual strategic position back in about 19th of March 2024, which had a lot of information for the architects during the 2-stage process. That 2-stage process has come up with a concept which is out for comment at the moment, but it was designed on a range of spaces that went to all those willing to participate. So as I've said to quite a few people, council haven't endorsed that concept. What we're doing now is doing the concept verification, so very much listening to what people have to say. So really good questions that you've asked. And certainly the things that you've raised were included in the words that each of the architects had to respond to. And perhaps I just talk firstly on the mini cafe concept. It's a bit like sort of the hole in the wall that's in the theatre gardens, very small. The intention is to assist people that may wish to linger. Obviously, we've got fantastic cafes, etc., nearby where you'd be certainly welcome to buy from there and come in. So it's not the intention of a major cafe or to compete with those. It'd be similar to the hole in the wall in the theatre gardens, just have a coffee, stay and linger. So that's what the architects who are selected have interpreted. But as I've said, that's not been adopted by council, and we're doing the concept verification. In terms of the council chambers, at this stage it's designed for around 50 people in the public gallery, so quite substantial, probably something similar to this. And there is an open up adjacent space there as well that would expand the number of people that would be able to, when we have a larger crowd. And once again, we did benchmark this prior to going out to do the two-stage architectural process. One of the core considerations was accessibility, really important, as you've said, and the concept that they've come up with, the architects, has lift access provided from both the ground floor but also the undercroft parking, so that would come straight up into to be able to access the council chambers. So it's a really key, important aspect for those that either wish to take the stairs as they've designed it, or the lifts from either the ground floor or the basement undercroft parking.
Thanks, CEO, and thank you for the question. Next up, Marina Childs of Nicholson Road, Shenton Park. 2 questions on the proposed civic building and gardens. Ms Childs. Okay, I take it she's not here and she hasn't arranged for anyone to ask the questions, which is a shame, but... Do it at the end. Okay, we'll move on. Marion Clark of Thomas Street, Subiaco. Ms Clark.
Okay, 2 years ago we had a meeting from council by Nicholson Street where the park is, and we had a laid out paper and signed in what we wanted to change. And okay, I live in Vandana and we needed more volunteers. That is all done. But the thing was, I was always concerned about the elderlies or people with big family when they come out of the shopping center from Coles, have to cross over on Station Street to go to the station or to Woolies. And there is no signage of pedestrian crossing or anything else, not even the yellow-red bow or even a sign, pedestrian crossing, something like this. And I'm just scared now for Christmas when everybody is so busy and everybody with the cars zooming through, that there are really some points. And so finally, thanks to Bridget, the new member, she gave me finally the blueprints that there will be a pedestrian. It's in the making. So I thank you that somebody came up and did it. And yeah, rubbish bins, that is an ongoing thing. Living in Vandana with nearly 300 people, I'm waiting now for 4 months for getting recycle bins. I talked to McCarthy, I talked to Mr. Pine, and oh yeah, finally, after 7 years living there, we got them cleaned. That was an achievement. But I'm still waiting for 2 660 liters of recycle. And yeah, no, my concern for everybody is intercrossing on Station Street, and I only wanted to point that out. But it's in the making. I see smiles, and I appreciate that. So that's all I have on my mind. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you. I don't wear them that often. I should wear them more. Thank you for the. Well, I think what you really wanted to know is about improved pedestrian safety on Station Street. Yes, there is a blueprint, but we can provide a bit more information. CEO.
Yeah, thanks very much. And we would, improving safety is actually really important for us, and particularly in the Subiaco train station. This project's been 3 years in the making. Working with main roads can always be challenging. You may have noticed, I think they probably removed just about every crossing there is so in WA, but you have to work pretty hard. But the community consultation that we completed last financial year, and we're going to deliver this project in 2 stages. So the first stage will involve traffic calming, and that will bring the speeds down to 40 kilometres. And our next stage is installing a raised pedestrian priority crossing. They're usually referred to as a wombat crossing, and that'll be on Station Street between the Coles and Woolworth site. And we assume that we'll go to tender in January 2026, so we hope that'll be completed by the end of this financial year.
Thanks, CEO. The next 2 questions come from Andrea Hawkes of Francis Street, Subiaco. Ms Hawkes, welcome back.
Mayor, CEO, staff, everybody else. It's lovely to see you. I have 2 questions today. Both relate to the civic precinct. My first question is, before last week, the Have Your Say webpage for the Civic Precinct project under your feedback gave several options for people to provide feedback. These included Have Your Say survey, online or printed out, by post to the city's offices at 388 Hay Street, by hand delivery to the office, by email to city@subiaco.wa.gov.au marked Civic Precinct, by filling in the Civic Precinct postcards, and by attending one of the listening posts. On the 12th of December, the webpage was updated. The references to post, hand delivery and email were removed. Is feedback sent by email to city@subiaco.wa.gov.au marked Civic Precinct still a valid method for providing feedback?
Thanks for the question. I'm happy to take this one because community consultation has been a priority for this council and previous councils who've had their fingers on the project as well. If there's any confusion on the website, I'm sure we can get that updated reasonably quickly, but the answer is yes, we will take feedback by email. There's very few ways in which you can give feedback that we would reject, I think. And just to be clear, we're actively still seeking feedback. There has been some talk about this being around the Christmas period, and sure, we're a week out from Christmas now, but this process has been going on since early November, and we've got healthy levels of response so far. We want more, and the more meaningful feedback we receive, the better. There are discussions about whether we open the feedback process for longer, and we'll certainly think about that. But the advice we've received is that there does come a point of diminishing returns where the longer you leave these processes open and the wider the net you cast, you're not going to get better feedback. But to answer your question, sure, send your feedback in by email if that's easier. But I'd certainly encourage people to complete our survey as well, so that we're considering like-for-like data when it's time to consider all the responses. And your second question, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of the Civic Precinct project, how many trees will be cut down from the whole site, including all of Rankin Gardens, around the Fallen Soldiers Memorial and along Rockaby Road to the library? And which of these are ceremonial trees, and which ceremonial trees will be transplanted and to where?
Thank you for your second question. CEO.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as I described earlier, the two-stage architectural process was essentially a bit of a black box where we provided back in March 2024 the words by which they needed to respond to, and we had a probity order through that process, and so we weren't actually able to talk to the architects until after they're selected. So the design team, I'll give you those details now though, but just in the context that this was the architects providing their response to our brief. So we've only just started what's called concept verification. So the design team, or the architect's initial response, was setting up the gardens and the urban canopy in a sort of structural and resilient and adaptable way. And so they did recommend some removal of selected trees to improve structural and sight lines, as well as SEPTED, or design for safety of community to walk through the precinct. Included is new plantings, particularly local species, and that was to increase the local biodiversity. And the other thing they considered was the health and resilience. So the initial design, as I said, it's not been approved by council, identified that 18 trees could be removed and 20 could be transplanted. So that was their initial design. However, now we've just started the process of having consultation with staff as part of the concept verification. And just to note that part of their design was to ensure that they preserved as many trees in place. So now that we've had that conversation, that will be ongoing, but I expect you'll find that what the architects originally came up with and what council eventually resolved to do will be substantially different, and certainly I imagine there will be many more trees preserved than what I just said. In terms of the relocation, there are a couple of trees, some ceremonial, etc., that have been suggested to be removed, and we understand that that is possible. We haven't identified a particular place where that would be. It could be within the precinct. So that's part of this concept verification process. But there's only a few trees that would impede the design, which is one of the clever things these architects came up with, was to try and save or retain in place as the bulk of the trees that are within the whole site. Hence why it's 3 stories rather than 2 stories or 1 story.
Thanks, CEO. Thanks, Ms Hawkes. Jackie Greenshields of Salisbury Street, Subiaco.
Mayor, CEO, staff and the gallery. Thank you for coming. I've actually got 3 questions. One question is not related to the Civic Centre and the other 2 are. So this one was more about health and visibility of some walls at shops in Subiaco. So the main thoroughfares of Bagot Road and Rockaby Road have become a little bit unsightly, with dogs urinating on the sides of the shops of the buildings, particularly the side of the crossways in Bagot Road. I virtually avoid walking that way. I've put the photos in. I have half a dozen more, but I thought that was enough for those who haven't seen it. Does the council have a program to clean these shops and buildings, or a policy that can to address this unsightly and unhealthy issue? And I have suggested, where we could plant maybe more trees or low shrubbery in the street for the dogs, like out the front of the post office. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. CEO.
Thank you. It's the actual dog owner's responsibility, as you'd be aware, in terms of the manner in which they clean up after their own dog. And if a dog owner didn't do that, then actually it's committing an offence under the city's local law. We do pressure cleaning programs, but that does not include private businesses. So we do it in the public realm. We don't do anything on private properties like crossways or anything, although we can describe that to them and see if they're keen to do that. As you know, city's got one of the best urban forests in the Perth metropolitan area. We certainly are focusing on greening opportunities throughout the town centre, and we do have a particular focus on improving the greening within Hay Street, but also beyond that as well. And obviously the idea is around the urban heat and environmental benefits, and that's in accordance with our council plan, but we don't specifically do private properties.
The street, that's still private property?
Yeah, if it's in the public realm, we do. If it's in the public realm, we do pressure cleaning fairly regularly. But if it's actually within the on the private property, we wouldn't do that because that's the owner's responsibility or the lessee's responsibility.
Question 2, please.
So question 2 and 3 are the Civic Precinct and Rankin Gardens. Over the past few weeks, I've been walking through Rankin Gardens every few days and speaking with people who use the path between the library and Hammersley Road, as well as people who simply sit and spend time in the gardens. While most people are aware that a new civic building is proposed, very few understand the gardens themselves are proposed to change significantly. Those who have heard about the project generally believe it just relates only to the building and not to the removal or alteration of garden areas. Yesterday, I spoke with a young local mother who was in the park with her baby. She was sitting beneath the Norfolk pine, watching her child learn to crawl on the cool, shaded grass on the Rockaby Road side. This is the same area proposed to be removed and replaced with native plantings and paths. She was genuinely shocked to learn that the lawn is proposed to be removed. She also expressed concerns that the shade-loving understory plants, including the monsteras and the palms, are proposed to be removed. She told me that she'd lived all over Australia and described Rankin Gardens as the most magic and beautiful park she'd ever experienced. She was going to come tonight with her baby, but unfortunately she wasn't here. This conversation reflects what I'm hearing repeatedly. People do not understand the scale or the nature of the proposed changes to the gardens. Many visitors are therefore unlikely to participate in the Have Your Say process because they believe the gardens will largely remain as they are. The concept drawings also make it difficult to understand what is being removed and what is staying. They lack clear labelling, orientation and detail, making it hard for the community to fully grasp the implications of the proposal. So will the council organise a series of community walkthroughs of the proposed Rankin Gardens plans, including the provision of clear detailed drawings that show which trees are proposed to be removed, which trees are proposed to be relocated, which lawn areas are proposed to be removed, and which areas are proposed to replace with native planting? And will the city consider extending the Have Your Say period, but introducing additional community touch points so residents can properly understand the full extent of the proposed changes to Rankin Gardens? Do I have?
Sure, I probably should have clarified that that's not me, that's the timer. If you get cut off, just press the button and please keep going.
Additional comments I had was the Have Your Say survey did not ask sufficiently specific questions about what the community values in the gardens, what they wish to retain, or what changes they support or oppose. As a final note, there were no visible Have Your Say signs in the park until I raised it with the city. While the signs were eventually installed, they did not even clearly identify the project's Have Your Say, further limiting community awareness. And now there's a sticker in the corner that says "Have your say," which I appreciate. It's all been followed up, but for a $64 million project, I thought that was not on. Yeah, so I've just got an example of, paths, trees. I'm trying to work out, is that path on the left of the pine? Is it on the right of the pine? I understand if the red brick path goes, it'll have to go because that's where the council chambers is. That's where the Tony Costa tree is, and all those sort of things. So they're not clear for people to make comments on. And I think the path, even though it may not have been there forever, is a particularly valuable path through the park. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Greenshields. I'll take this one as well, because I think consultation, as I've stated already, is an important issue for us on council. And I think you've combined your questions 2 and 3, so I'll try and answer them both in a logical kind of way. On the topic of the detail that's in the published drawings, I think I'd just urge you and others to remind remember what we're doing at the moment. We're putting out a concept design for the first time, and we're doing that in a way that I think we've been very, very open about. The last minuted decision made in a public meeting was that we would appoint a team of architects that I think, as you know, had been selected as the result of a rigorous process, and were appointed with the help of an independent jury who are leaders in their fields as architects. What we're doing at the moment is putting out the documents that they have provided to us in a relatively untouched way, because arguably it would have been almost improper to start fiddling with the design, given how much of a premium we've placed on probity up until now. So the point we will keep making is that these are concept designs based on design principles. Now is the time where we start being asked things like, the path goes down past a certain tree, what does it all mean? And the next stage, I think, is when we will look at where the targeted consultation needs to occur. So on the topic of consultation, we are currently in a consultation process, and once we've got the feedback and we've collated it and considered it in the new year, we'll look at what targeted consultation we can undertake in 2026. Some of that may involve the holding of walkthroughs through the Rankin Gardens. Our Parks and Environment team have in fact already started working with the design team on initial feedback, so that we can give more consideration to the types of issues you're talking about, and to walk people through the gardens with that type of focus. That's the type of consultation which I think we weren't necessarily anticipating at this particular time, and I dare say the community wouldn't have been ready for if we hadn't presented something tangible like we have done. It's all the start of a conversation. It's a concept design prepared by the team whom council deemed was the best team for the job, and I suppose it's what happens next is determined by the current community consultation process and our interpretation of that in the new year. I think that's covered everything.
Just on the survey, I think for me a question like how important is native plants, which a lot of people are just going to say fabulous, but it doesn't say if we remove the lawned areas, which is exactly, and put paving and concrete pillars and things in. I think it's just, yeah, it's going to get certain answers and not others, particularly for the garden. Anyway, that's my...
It's good feedback, and I think the point of the exercise is to take a broad brush approach and to understand what the what the real concerns are in the community and what needs more work. And I think in this modern age, people default to the answer that yes, we like the natives, we want to see more natives. But as you say, if they're answering questions and they're thinking all about the natives, perhaps they're not necessarily focused on the other things. But the great thing is at the City of Subiaco that we've got a communications and marketing and engagement team who are going to be well equipped to help us in the new year as well. And well, I mean, if people are saying we need walkthroughs, we need some further targeted consultation, then I see no reason why that won't occur. CEO, I know you've done a lot of work on the answers prior to this meeting. Have I covered everything that staff wanted to get out from the officer point of view?
Yeah, I think you have. I think the main point that we're trying to get across, and some of the things that you've raised with us and other people through the fact that we're meeting, and also the couple hundred surveys that are already in, showing some really clear, giving us some guidelines that we can actually go back and speak to council and say, look, there's more targeted requests for, as you say, walkthroughs for us to be able to say and show what the architects proposed and what at the right time what staff are suggesting in relation to that. We've done a few of those with elected members, and we think it'll be really good to do with the community in the future. So, I mean, I've given you that commitment that we'll do that anyway. But also we need to be able to share that information with the elected members, the ultimate decision maker at council. There's certainly a way to go.
Thanks for the questions. Stephanie Stroud of Barker Road.
Yes, good evening, CEO and Mayor, staff and councillors past and present and mayors and electors. Is this meeting being recorded? Good.
Yeah, I think I told everyone it's being recorded and live streamed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's on YouTube, on the city's YouTube page.
Thank you. Following on from your advice, Mayor, I sent out an email to the community encouraging them to respond to the public consultation process. And basically, my question is, I'm just really paraphrasing this, is that if I provide these responses to the city by the public consultation deadline, will the city include the information as feedback on the civic precinct proposal?
Thanks for the question. There was a bit more context in your original question, so I might just share that with the whole audience. But what I advised to you was that if you or others have a different opinion to us about aspects of the concept design, now is the time to provide that feedback. A former councillor like yourself can help play a role in encouraging this type of feedback amongst your networks. So thanks for doing that, Ms Stroud. We are aware that that a number of former councillors are working their email networks, and that's all good to see. I think you did a number of things in your Dear Subiaco community email. You invited them to visit the city's project website and to provide their feedback, and you also asked them to submit their feedback to you if they like, and I think you said that you would collate it anonymously if necessary. That anonymous collating of information does concern me a bit, because I want to receive feedback in the most untouched kind of terms without anonymity, without any editorial input. So thank you for directing people to the city's formal feedback channels. If they do, however, send you feedback and they ask you to keep their feedback anonymous for some reason, firstly, I think you would know that you can encourage them that there's no need for anonymity, but secondly, please send it through. We'll do what we can with it within the constraints that I think we need to work with when we receive anonymous feedback. But thank you for your ongoing interest in the project.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned editorial. I have no intention of editing any editorial to the emails. The other thing is that the feedback to the city can be anonymous as well. So you don't actually have to put your name or address, your full name. That is actually optional. All you need to do is put your email address.
Sure, I know the channels we've made available. I think my point is just that we need to be careful whenever any third party collates and submits feedback to us, even if it's you, Ms Stroud. That's the only point I'm making.
My idea is, thank you, Mayor, is that I would just print off every email that I received, block out their name and hand it in.
Sure, and we would say send it through with your name and address so that we know who you are. But please, your second question.
Now, I have to take this further with you, Mayor, because the feedback does not actually ask for that.
No, Ms Stroud, your second question, please. We'll accept your feedback if it's anonymous, but we'd prefer if it was formal feedback via the city's normal channels. That's my answer to the first question. Your question 2, please.
We're getting off at a good start, obviously. The Civic Precinct proposal offers various indoor community facilities, such as a community hub with a kitchen, while at the same time ignoring the outstanding requests from the Artist Hub and the Women's Shed for a community facility, a home. But my question is, does the city plan to lease the new community hub and other facilities, and if so, at a nominal rent or as an income-producing return?
Thank you. CEO.
I'll answer that question first, but I'll cover the other things you've asked as well. So it's always an option for council to provide a lease. That would be under a separate process, which is a Section 358 component of the Local Government Act, which would require advertising and then brought back to council for a council decision. We hadn't contemplated anything like that type of exclusive lease or anything of that nature. It's always open to council, but the manner in which it's been designed is around bookable spaces with the high fees that are adopted within the annual budget every year, that process. So it would be similar to just every other community facility we have. In terms of the statement around the components in terms of the in terms of what we're doing for the Arts Hub, etc. We certainly have put in 2 submissions in terms of the old PMH site to Development WA, originally for the Boiler House, and we still have a submission for the outpatients building that we're awaiting the state government or Development WA to determine whether or not we've been successful in receiving that. In addition, assuming this proceeds in some way and there is a community component within the civic precinct, it does also provide opportunities at Tom Dadle potentially in terms of manual arts. So it could be that that could be repurposed at that stage as well. So we've got sort of 2 main options. And in terms of the Women's Shed, certainly I've been looking to support in a temporary facility, and as I said, there's to the Women's Shed, there's still a few balls in the air in terms of what council actually decide. But once those things start to proceed in terms of the civic precinct and also Mount Claremont depot site, that may free up another opportunity for the Women's Shed as well. So we certainly think that Subiaco has valuable many people in the arts community that we should be able to support, and it's a high priority. We have council resolutions, and as you know, as CEO, I've got to implement council resolutions. So we're certainly pursuing how we can provide support for those particularly interested in manual arts, but also, as you know, the civic precinct design also includes an exhibition space as well, which is slightly different, but still provides opportunities for art and other things to be exhibited, including museum materials.
Thanks, CEO. Thanks for the questions. Okay, the final set of... No, there's 2 more submitters who've submitted ahead of time. Snezana Vandergraaf of Roydhouse Street, Subiaco.
Thank you. So I'm concerned about how space is allocated for council employees in the new civic center. How much of that space? My attempt to get information from the architects, the Lions, about the total under roof area reserved for council staff went unanswered. And the project manager who was there in Shenton Park, the last contact I had, could not provide this detail either. But he did share only some cost estimates and general descriptions. So my question is, how much under roof space approximately? I know it's a concept design, but give me some range of square meters on the roof, and how much of that under roof space is allocated for council employees?
Thank you. Yeah, we'll probably break them up. And look, I think the CEO is probably better placed than most to answer a question like this. But if I may just add just the smallest bit of commentary, and I'm happy to say that I think we need to give our executives some credit when we ask them what they need to deliver for the city. I'm going to quote a private equity guy that I've worked with in the past, and he once said to me that if you want to run a marathon, you need the right equipment, but if I give you the right equipment, you've got to deliver. What we're doing now is asking the CEO and his team what a modern workforce needs in order to deliver for the city of Subiaco now and into the next 50 to 100 years. He's certainly been probed by staff who'd like to sometimes have the smallest floor space possible, so that we don't end up, I suppose, paying for the thing. But the CEO has put quite a bit of thought into what the workforce will need going forward. So CEO, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. The total area for staff in the initial concept that Lions have responded to was 2,044 square kilometres, which is pretty similar to metres. Square kilometres, yeah. Given we're 5.5 square kilometres, we're...
Aren't you meant to be good with numbers, CEO?
We're expanding, yeah. I'm good with numbers, just not with metres and square metres. And also, those that know me quite well would know that I'm not that great at reading either. So, yeah, 2,044 square metres. And that's similar to the estimate that we made in the report that went to Council in December, which followed the fire. So this includes around 158 workstations, 5 offices, and space for 2 call centre staff. The workstations, I think the question was a little bit more detailed, so I'll give you that as well. In the brief was 12.4 square metres, not kilometres, per workstation, and so that also includes circulation space, meeting rooms, toilets, etc. So it was very formula driven, and it's in line with the state government benchmark. So we had a benchmarking exercise as well.
And 2,000 roughly is for council. Is that? I mean, I ask how much in percentage or in space. The total you have answered how much council, but how much is the total space? Under
3,443, I think, is the... So it's about 3,400 square metres in total, the build, and of that, 2,044 is the area for staff.
It was 1,300 square meters, and that you have now leased something just over 1,000 square meters. So your needs are almost... your space will go by 60–70% compared to the old one. So my second question is, although numerous private organizations have moved towards hybrid work arrangements, and much of the council tasks could be performed remotely, it is unclear why no forecasts were prepared taking this model into account. According to the project manager from Shenton Park, my meeting, the council work is highly specialized and requires employees to be present at the premises full-time. 36% of Australians are now working remotely. So you are projecting, you are booking the space that is 60–70% bigger than the old one, and you are not actually, it seems, you are not accounting for hybrid or remote work in your projections for space. Could you please tell me why is this not accounted for?
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you. So they're not sort of like-for-like comparisons. So the existing building constrained the staff that we could actually have in it. And so over the years, various staff have moved to different locations. So the idea is that technical staff that are now at Bishop Street, rangers, etc., would be located within this one facility. And the reason why that's important is at the moment when somebody wants to come and see and talk to a new building and they want to talk to planning staff and building staff, the rangers and engineers, they need to go to at least 2 buildings now. So the design in terms of those numbers of the 158 workstations was to bring people that are currently residing out at Bishop Street as well, so that we can provide one customer service so that if somebody comes to talk about their property, that they'll be able to deal with all the staff that are relevant. In terms of hot desking and saving floor space, etc., and the design and what's happening in the private sector as well, one of the things that we've had some good experience in this because, firstly, through COVID, and we learned quite a lot about how to work from home, etc. And then obviously we also had a fire, and there was probably about 6 or 7 months before we were able to move into this building. So we did work from a lot of the coffee shops in Subiaco and those sorts of things. So we do have the ability to work from home a couple of days a week. Most people tend to want to come into, I mean, Subi's a beautiful place, right? But in addition to that, it sort of adds significantly in terms of the collaboration and the way in which you work with different parts of the organisation. And also some roles, obviously the customer service need to be here to talk to people when they come in. So certain roles, I always say local government's sort of like, 25 businesses under one roof. We do a lot of different things. So certainly we understand hybrid arrangements, etc. What we have found though is we have found that even through working with home up to 2 days a week, most people don't do that. So they do come into the office, and also we do have quite a lot of part-time staff as well. So having your own little space it seems to work a little bit better in terms of then trying not to manage about the various part-time staff, the days that they work, etc. So in that regard, we have considered that in terms of the brief that we provided all the architects through that process. And we have had conversations since with the architects in terms of that approach, and does that make sense in terms of all the public buildings and the buildings that they're building for local government, universities and those sorts of things. So we are certainly getting feedback in terms of whether that sort of space requirement is appropriate, but it's more so around we were limited with the previous building, which had been expanded twice, and it's started out much smaller in 1967 and 15 years later was increased, etc. So that just limited who we could have within that building, and we had to move them to different locations.
Thank you. There were no more questions submitted ahead of time, but we've had at least one late question, and I'll ask in a second if there's any more. Chloe Senior.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor, CEO, council staff, and everyone here. I'm just making a statement tonight on the civic precinct development.
Sorry, Ms. Senior, it would really help me out if you asked a question about it, just so that everyone's playing by the same rules. If it's just a statement, we haven't really allowed for those this evening, but any way that you could ask us to answer something, I think would answer something. Yeah, would just mean everyone leaves happy. Thank you.
Sorry, do I need to say my address? No? Okay. Look, when I first saw the concept, my initial reaction... Is this working? No. My initial reaction was very positive. It looked very impressive and thoughtfully designed, but I have had a closer look and I've developed some concerns. And I don't feel that the community has been properly consulted from the onset. I suppose it's I'm in the design field, and I feel that consultation should really start before the brief is formed, and the community engagement should help inform the brief. Sorry, I'm just trying to make it more of a question. And I don't feel that the consultation that's noted in the feedback, there was consultation on other projects, but I don't see how that's relevant here. So each project, in my view, has its own context, impacts, community expectations, and this process to me just appears to be absent. Additionally, I don't feel that the outcome aligns with some of the basic things in the brief, because it talks about a very modest project, and to me this is a very large project. I would also appreciate clarification on whether a budget was provided to the architects. If so, how was the budget determined, and what constraints or objectives did it impose on the design? And from what's just been discussed, we talked about 3,400 square metres, and if you take a rate of $15,000 a square metre, that sits at 51 million. So obviously the square metre rate for this project is more than $15,000 a square metre, which I work in commercial projects, and that is a very high square metre rate. So I just believe that the community would be more supportive of the project if it had been engaged from the outset. And successful architectural outcomes are typically born from the tension between needs, aspirations, budget, and negotiated transparently between all stakeholders. And I think, would the council take, I suppose my question is that on? Would the council take a step back from this overall project as a whole, and I suppose engage not just on what's been designed, but taking a step back from what's been designed? And I think in that way, my view is you'll get a lot more community buy-in.
Thanks for the question. So I was shaking my head at the CEO, not at you. Yeah, about money. But I'll answer what I feel I can speak on behalf of the council, and then the CEO's got some dollar figures there to speak to how we've got here. Look, I think we're not surprised that there's certain aspects of the design on which reasonable minds might differ. We're expecting this, and what we're doing now is exactly what we set out to do, which is to stress test the concept design that our team's put together for us. Look, maybe on the consultant side in your line of work, you might have done things differently, but from the client side at the City of Subiaco, I'm entirely confident saying to this community that the process has been contemporary, commercial and professional. It's been robust, it's been sophisticated and properly resourced. And yes, this is a significant project that we haven't necessarily done as a city previously, but we've had the best advice possible. We have had an independent architectural procurement consultant assisting us, who's very much been hands-off. He hasn't been providing architectural services, but he led us through the procurement process. We've had a probity advisor separate from him to make sure that he was doing the right thing and that council and the city were getting the value and the probity which they would rightly expect on a project this size. Now, whilst the cost might concern you and others, and it certainly hasn't been far from the minds of anyone on council, please take the time to probe the information which is on our website and which the CEO will run us through. But the executive advice that we're receiving loud and clear is that this project can be funded responsibly without a direct impact on rates. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, but we'll get there. But what I'd urge you and everyone else to do is not think about what we might have done differently. We can't turn back the clock, but I don't think there's... Well, I'm not having a debate with you, sir. We can't turn back the clock and do things differently. We can consider the feedback in the new year. We can identify the specific areas that require further consultation. But to justify why we did what we did, council and staff have been working on this for 3 years. It's taken 3 years to reach a point where there's some degree of consensus between the elected members. Okay, stop the heckling. I'm answering the question. It's taken 3 years of hard work to get to this point with considered hard work and analysis of this community's needs now and in the future. Now we've got something that we can present to you, and those of you like yourself who are in the design field can say, this is what I think and this is what I would have done differently. Those who are not in the design field can say, well, here's what I think as a ratepayer. But if we'd gone out to community without the concept design, what would we have had to show you? We would have had some pretty vague concepts, and I'm pretty confident we would be further from practical completion than we are now. We're already talking about a 2030 practical completion timeline. Now we've got something tangible to focus on. We'll refine that. We'll consider your feedback. You might have done things differently, but from where I sit, I'm comfortable that the process has been one that I'm happy to put my name to. CEO, the dollars and cents, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. So the per metre rate that you're talking about is on the total project. So at the moment, we estimate the building would be $28.5 million. That's external cost controllers provided us that. Included in that is a whole range of other elements, including sort of the demolition. So that's included in the $64 million. So if you click on the link, you'll see that. There's landscaping, preliminaries, margins, design contingency, construction contingency, professional fees, etc. So the actual estimated, if we went to tender now, which we can't do, I don't have a concept hasn't been verified, we would expect that to be around 28.5 million at the moment. So, but we have escalation in there as well. So it really depends. And in terms of the mayor describing the process, there's been 5 council resolutions on this that go back to 2021, and then after the fire 2022, and then in March 2024 that described the words that we had taken from all the other consultations that we have. So people said they wanted more contemporary spaces for them to meet, for the community facilities. Included in that was more art space where there would be able to be, art sort of demonstrated to people, etc. Contemporary facilities in terms of both the staff as well, and council chambers. But it was the fire in 2022 that really accelerated this. But in March 2024, that's when those design principles, opportunities and constraints and functional spaces were adopted by council. So it's not unusual in a 2-stage process to go about it in a way in which really highly esteemed jury, including the WA architect, the former WA architect, and also 2 very clever people from the East Coast as well, that they sat through this process with a probity auditor and with City Lab to be able to present a concept for the council to consider in the future, but also to seek feedback from the community. So that's what we're doing now. And that will go through the process where this feedback will give information to the selected architect. But so we're advised this would be a good process to follow. Feedback from the current WA architect and the former is that it's been an excellent process. So I understand your point of view, but that's the resolutions that council have taken over that time since February 2021. And as CEO, I must implement those. So I've been doing that.
Thanks. Just because we really like the question, I think we do better when the questions are submitted without notice. We haven't spoken a lot about the two-stage process, but for those who've sat on councils before, there's often this strange kind of tension between council and staff, and councillors sometimes feel that when a request for tender goes out and they receive a report at the end of the process at a council meeting, that they haven't had any input into that. This two-stage tender process, which was essentially like almost a mini design competition, allowed for more elected member input throughout the process than the traditional local government procurement model would have. So that's the first thing that I think is important. We act within a certain legislative landscape in local government, and we've tried something that's a little bit innovative, a little bit more aligned with how you would do projects outside of local government, I think, and which it may not seem like it now, but it has had more elected member input than the traditional local government procurement process ordinarily would have allowed. And just something to ponder, sure, it's a lot of money. Of course, it's a lot of money. We don't discount that, but there's other local governments who are doing big civic projects at the moment. The City of Melville's working on a $60 million project. That's for a library and a civic building as well. So there's this $60 million. So I suppose the thing that I'd urge this whole community, not just the people in the room, but all 18,000, going on 19,000 of them, what I'd urge them to consider is, should this community have nice things, and what would be a fair impost on the current population for the sake of future generations, and what is it that this community enjoys now that was paid for by ratepayers in the past? Thanks for the question. Any other questions from the floor? Well, from where I sit, I did, Stephanie Stroud. Are there any other questions from the floor? Please take the microphone.
Sorry, can I just got to go, and this is on behalf of someone else. This is just a motion.
Yeah, we'll get to motions later. It's a motion though, not a question.
Previous mayor of this council. Are the current councillors and staff aware of the consultation process that took place in the early 1990s, right through 1990s, when we were looking at undergrounding the railway and opening up the endowment areas? The process took 5 years. And in that process, one town planning scheme was totally rejected because of the protest from the people in organising. We had quite several meetings of over 500 people to go through and explain. I think I'll just raise that question if you're aware of it, because you just got to be a little bit wary. Subiaco has a different culture to many other councils, and it's been, if you notice in the past, it's when something really irritates them, they're likely to react hard. Yeah. It's all right, but I'll just ask that question.
Look, on the cultural thing, I mean, you don't have to think too far back to see when local issues have divided this community and consultation processes have gone off the rails. So, look, I assure you that every conversation we've had outside of the public eye, the word consultation has come up. We knew this was going to be an issue, and we're just trying to get it right. Now, we have gone back and looked at a lot of past events. Our governance team has scrupulously gone back and looked at the history of recommendations and decisions and non-decisions relating to the civic precinct and the old council building. Look, I don't think that's probably too much information for tonight. I don't know, however, if we've considered the consultation you're talking about, because it is a separate matter, and it does look at it. If the outcome was the one that the community wanted, it may demonstrate the lengths that need to be gone to for a good consultation. Geez, is the city aware of it? Well, who was working here in 1994? Yeah, do we have the paper trails? CEO.
Through the chair, look, I've certainly read the book that was published, and I've had the good fortune to meet with a lot of the elected members during this consultation period who have relayed to me some of the challenges during that time. And, you know, the outcome's a pretty good outcome. Interestingly, I'm in the process of still trying to close out the Subiaco Redevelopment Authority. Hopefully that will get to a conclusion on that, but we're working diligently to close that out. was a really good outcome for the community. But I certainly am aware of some of the challenges over the time, and I think the Mayor touched on, we have gone back even just within this project, and certainly goes back a lot of conversation through the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. So there have been a range of council resolutions even on this particular project itself, and whether to refurbish or to whether to rebuild and replace. So certainly understood.
Okay, there's still time for more questions on the floor, but otherwise there's been some motions submitted for tonight. Fiona Plant.
Hi, my question is just really regarding traffic impacts on Hammersley Road. So it seems as though the car parking for staff will now access off Hammersley Road rather than Rockaby. As you're aware, we've had ongoing safety concerns about traffic and so on for the children going to Subiaco Primary School, particularly along Hammersley Road, where we get a lot of through traffic. People don't know, what sort of area they're in, and we've been in discussions for a while now about traffic calming on that road. What are your thoughts about how would you address the safety concerns for students on that road?
And I remember you raising that issue when you were the board of the primary, the board chair. Look, I know what I know and what I don't know. The CEO has a team of people who know road safety and traffic engineering. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, thanks very much, Fiona. Really good question. So every concept that I've looked at in terms of the civic precinct, and particularly 241 Rockaby Road, has always dealt with that crossover there and the challenges about what it does by basically segregating that whole precinct. And so that was one of the design concerns that I think everyone's had. And if you look on the website, you'll see three quite different concepts, with one quite hard up against Hammersley Road in terms of that's one of the ways in which the architects interpreted that. But in terms of road safety, there's a couple of things coming, well, one thing's coming soon for certain, and that is the Rockaby Road South project. So there will be a raised plateau on Rockaby and Hammersley, so they'll be slowing the traffic down on that part of Rockaby Road as well through a series of interventions. That's the first thing. The second thing, by bringing not just staff, but it would also be community. So we imagine people will park there, they want to go to the library as well, they'll come up the lift and in this concept. So there'll certainly be public parking there as well. And the way in which that would be done would, at this stage, would, to save as many trees as possible, would be to come through the property that you're referring to, and essentially almost align with Campbell Street as well. So the current design that we think could possibly work, but we'd have to go through more detailed designing, would be a small roundabout through there. So as you know, and that would also then slow down the traffic that is on Hammersley and Campbell Street as well. So that's still yet to be worked through, but if the exit through that part, which then frees up and makes that whole precinct one, that's the intention, and be able to slow the traffic down, but also have good ingress and egress into that. But whether it's a left in, left out, left in, left out, or and a hard, along Hammersley, so you can't turn in that way, or whether it's a small roundabout around Campbell Street, that's still to be designed. So that concept's still got to be worked through.
So will there be further consultation with the school, like the communities, particularly on those sort of traffic considerations?
Can I answer through the chair?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we briefed the school on this before we went out. We've been in close consultation with the school around also other opportunities for us to work with them. We know they have staff parking issues and a whole range of other things that we've been trying to work with them in terms of what could be a good outcome, and they've been very positive in that consultation, and that will continue.
Thanks for the question. Electors, I'll take any more, but I'm conscious we've been going 1.5 hours already, and you've got some motions that we ought to consider soon. Question. Can I just have an indication how many more questions there might be? Okay, two more at the back.
I'm Angus Offer from 119 Redfern Street, Subiaco. So it seems like the motions that are coming are all addressing some of the concerns that I and many of the electors have. So I'm not going to go over those again. The question I had is just around the concept appears to be this big structure and that's it. Has consideration been given to refurbishing and extending the existing buildings, and alternatively a more modest, sort of economically responsible structure?
We've considered just about everything. The commitment to demolish and rebuild was resolved by council back in December 2022. It's all there in the officer report. The reasons why it was recommended not to do that are all set out there, and that was one of the recommendations, which amongst others have been fairly strongly endorsed by council. So yes, we've certainly considered that. Sorry, there was one more aspect to the question.
I guess a more modest design takes into account that many of the things that we're going to do with this new building, or it's proposed to do with this new building, are covered in other community facilities.
Yep. Has consideration been given to a more modest design? Without wanting to repeat myself, we briefed architects based on a series of principles, and what they've come up with was this concept, and we've been very deliberate about not changing it before it went out to consultation. So has the question been asked time and time again whether certain bits could be stripped back? Of course they have. You've got 9 elected members who would prefer to spend as little as possible on this. Could that still be in the mix? Yeah, look, absolutely. All council's resolved at this point is to appoint the design team, and there is no resolution to build what is currently out for consultation. Okay. Thank you. Tony Costa. We'll get to those. We'll just finish off question time. No, hang on, Tony. You'll have a chance to move a motion, but we're just going to finish off question time first.
That's what I'm going into now.
Okay. If you wanted to use the microphone, we'll make sure that people listening online can hear it as well.
Which one I press? Is something I press here? Thank you. My question is relative to this, I'll use my expression, known as the desecration of another act of desecration to the great municipality of the city of Subiaco. To do what's being proposed in the relevant gardens, I believe, is a terribly negative act, not only to the people of Subiaco, but also to the ecology of what we enjoy currently. And it's therefore I make the plea to yourself, particularly, Mr. Mayor, and your fellow councillors, that we need to give more time to arguing the issue, because it does, in my view, it runs under the category of desecrating what's known as a great history of this municipality. And if we don't bite the bullet now, we will continue to live to regret it. So my question is, what can you do and what will you do regarding the ugliness and the destruction of the ecology?
Well, I'd urge you and others to put in your feedback so that we can consider it in the new year. We've said all along that we've got every intention to consider the feedback, and if people are telling us that they don't like aspects of the design, and we've certainly heard it about the roses, we've heard there's too many hard surfaces, and all that's going to be properly considered by council. You have our assurance.
It's for that reason I articulate to you, for that very reason.
Okay, well, yes, I think we are somewhat on the same page, and we'll listen to the feedback and see what meaningful use we can make of it.
Maybe we need a bit more time.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. We do want to keep it open as long as is meaningful for this community. Thanks, Mr. Costa. I saw another hand up. Was someone else going to ask a question?
Yeah, my name's Michael Huston. In the mid-80s, late 80s, when we put together the... Sorry. Now. So I was the councillor here in the late 80s, early 90s when we put together the funds that you're now proposing to spend. So I do want to get to that matter. But before we get to that matter, I was just wondering, given the size of this project, and I heard the lady's earlier comments that you're going from a footprint currently of about 1,600 square metres to over 3,000 at a time when even if only half the staff worked 1 day a week at home, that would give you a 10% reduction. And you've lost half of Southport since I was on council, which also gives you a 10% reduction. And your response to the lady was you need to increase because you're consolidating technical and ranger and other staff, and yet you're also building a new technical building. So I'm just wondering, what's the experience of the staff, the CEO in particular, and whoever the CEO next relies on to advise on projects of this size? And the reason I raise it is the state governments had exactly the same problem where they've taken on board huge capital works programs at a time when you simply don't have the staffing and the experience to manage those programs, and everything ends up getting buffered back. So what's the experience of your staff in handling, excuse me, two massive building capital works programs which you've never undertaken before?
So the question's not about floor space, it's about managing the project.
Well, I'll come to the floor space.
Yeah, for the moment, it's about the project management.
Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've been involved myself personally in a lot of builds across 25 years in local government and even when I was in state government as well. So I think a relevant example, which one I shared with a number of elected members that I've met, this project's been on the cards since the 90s. In 2005, yeah. So quite often I always say to people, our brains are quite often focused on the price of something, but don't necessarily consider the cost of the price of doing something rather than cost of doing nothing. So when I was at Town of Bassendean, we built a 1,200 square metre library for $4.1 million in 2005. Now, certainly Town of Bassendean had a lot less funds than Subiaco has in those days as well. If you would equate that, had the city of Subiaco built the same that is on the spec now, it probably would cost about $12.3 million. Well, let's put it up to say 3 times that. So, so just round it up to say 15 million. It would have cost to do that today, back in 2005, and we would be in a building on that site with a depreciation value of about 300,000. So the cost of sort of not doing that in 2005 means that we're paying roughly about $1 million here, and we got about I'll get there. So one of the things about managing the cost is about the timing by which you're able to get your tender documents in terms of a request for tender. I understand how to manage projects. I've done many myself, and we have really great quality staff and very good consultants as well. So the timing will very much depend on the documentation, assuming council decide to proceed with that, will very much determine what the price is at that stage. So how quickly, how slowly we get to that point, that'll determine the price. But I have every confidence in the staff and the contractors that we have. Subiaco tends to attract the best staff, and it also tends to attract the best contractors, because people want to be involved with all things City of Subiaco. So I'm pretty confident we can manage this process, as well as the various people that we've used. I think if it was a project that was not of that scope, I don't think we would have attracted the jury that we attracted. Very high quality professionals, both in WA and on the East Coast. We've also, the architectural firm both has local representation as well as representation from the East Coast as well. So, and the City Lab, the procurement specialist that we use as well, is probably the best in Australia. So I think we certainly will be able to manage this project. We have so far to date. We've implemented the council resolutions. I've got every confidence that both the staff that we've got, which are of a really high quality, as well as the contractors that we use, will be able to manage this project should council determine to proceed. In addition to that, once you have a concept, you can then also seek federal and state funding. So maybe I'll be having a conversation with you as to how you might be able to help us in that regard.
Thanks, CEO. There are a couple of other aspects to the question foreshadowed.
State funding for the South Perth project. There's a councillor there as well, so yeah, happy to help. Look, it does worry me, your answer, just to comment quickly for a second, because you've gone to cost, which I do want to go to, and managing cost, and I'm not concerned about your staff being able to manage the costs of a project. It's the volume, the sheer volume of two massive projects, and you know, I don't want to personalise it to you, but since you did, you know, even your own experience was one project about a third of the size of the two major projects, the Service Works building and then this building. And then might I say, just on the building itself, for the sake of it, since people are commenting on that, the pavilion strikes me as a pretty ugly, horrible building. It's a little better than the Undercroft building for the school I went to, which was a 70s building. So it's not a great advancement. And yes, I am worried about the quality of staff, the experience of staff to be able to manage projects that are massive. They are really, really big projects. And sure, you can hire consultants. That does cost money, which you went to, but that information still has to be delivered to the councillors in a way that's digestible to them through yourselves. And that's where I have pretty grave concerns. Anyway, I don't want to beat that bush to death. What I do want to move on to is the costs. I'm particularly worried about the costs because, yes, I was the councillor that was there at the time we put together the funds that you're now relying on, and a quick scan through your financial reports shows that you've got about a net 110 million. You like to round figures, so let's work on round figures. It's easier math for everyone to keep up with. Call it I think it's 110, but call it 100 million in net current assets. You've got a net 100 million in investment buildings and saleable buildings. So you've got 200 million net in, I think it's 220, but we'll call it 200, in net fungible funds that you can generate. And right now you're generating $5 million on your own reports in finance and investment income on that. That's a pathetic $2.5 million, 2.5%. You should be getting about 6%. So that's a significant worry in itself. And so I don't see how you're going to fund the projects without impact on the rates. Furthermore, again, on your current report, you've shown even after an increase in your investment returns that you still got a 250,000 net operating your investment returns of $5 million, and your current borrowing and principal repayment costs of $3.7 million. So if you're operating right now at a $250,000 net operating loss, you're only generating $5 million, not double that, in investment returns. You've got $3.7 million currently in finance and borrowing outgoings. You're moving from $5 million in current borrowings to $65 million if it's all borrowed. So there's just no way the math stacks up that it can have no impact on the rates. It absolutely has to, just never mind all the big figures I pointed out, just the mere fact that already you're operating on a $250,000 operating loss. So you can't do it in a way which is net revenue deficit neutral to the current budget position. It's just mathematically not possible.
I'm just wondering where we're going with this line of questioning. You're going to say, no, you can't. You'll say, yes, you are. You'll say different figures to what you're saying. What I think the community would really like is some calculations to look over.
Yes, tell me where any of my current math is wrong.
CEO, there's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of numbers being mentioned at the moment. Give the answer that the electors can, I suppose, follow given the time of evening, and then I think we're probably all conscious that in due course we'll put out calculations that that can be scrutinised by those interested. CEO.
Yeah, personally.
Well, no, I think he was just about ready to get going. So, CEO.
Yeah, I mean, you plucked one annual financial year without looking at previous financial years in terms of net operating. Included in that net operating is non-cash items where we fully depreciated a range of buildings. So I know you've said 234,000. In terms of the financials, there's been really good financial stewardship of many years. And if you'll notice, you would have heard the Mayor, if you had to come in on time, you will have heard the Mayor talk about for 7 years we've not increased minimum rates. And for the last 4 years, the increase for non-minimums has only been 1.9%. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that we also have growth as well. So we've been able to minimise the impact on ratepayers. You know, I do league tables every year, so I know where we sit in terms of the metro area, and we've certainly been climbing in terms of the less amount that we charge the ratepayer, and in terms of commercial rates, it's certainly in the top 5 of the lowest in the metro area. So we've kept rates low. We think we can continue to do that because of the growth that we have in Subiaco, particularly in Subiaco East. That'll then continue with the redevelopment of the King Edward Memorial site as well. And in terms of managing this, we could finance some of it, but in terms of cost, actually internal financing is what we've done in the past. We take an internal loan. But in addition to that, this is a project that goes over a number of years, so we have savings that we can achieve as well through the level of capital works that we do. There's a range of different ways that we can ensure that this project doesn't impact on rates, and we're pretty confident. We've also had some external validation in terms of the actual investment proposal as well. So I understand that you may not be a fan of mine, or you might not think myself and my staff have got the capability to do it, and that's fine. But what I will say is that the record of the city is pretty impressive, both in terms of financial management and also in terms of investing in the community and delivery. And there's been many projects and infrastructure improvements that have been done and managed to be financed, including stuff that probably not everyone looks at, but upgrading all of our drains to 1 in 100 years, etc. But upgrading Postal Walk, Seddon Street, all those other types of infrastructure projects that make Subi pretty amazing. So I'm confident that we can continue to deliver. The Mount Claremont is a smaller project in scale, in particular because essentially the vast majority of the infrastructure is already there because we're taking over a portion of the Western Power site. So it's really a bit of a refit. And it also, in each of those projects that you talk about, quite often they free up other space where we're either leasing out. So look, I'm really confident in our ability, our contractors' abilities as well, to manage this project and also ensure that we can keep downward pressure on rates. You also talked about loans. Some of those loans are historical and relate to undergrounding of power, including the Perth Act that you referred to, that took a fair chunk of Subiaco in terms of that became the City of Perth. So we certainly can service those loans. If the council of the day, and this is to proceed beyond concept to tender, and then we know what the price of that is, part of that will be a funding package which will include seeking funds from state and federal. There's the project that that the Mayor mentioned, and there's also a project in Kalamunda recently received federal government funding to about 15 million. We also think lotteries in terms of the spaces that we're looking to. So we certainly think there's the opportunity for us to attract funding. What we're saying is we're not reliant on that, but if we're successful in that, you need a concept, you need a shovel-ready project. We think we'd be pretty confident in attracting funding as well. So those funding decisions are yet to come. We've got all options available. Can I assure you that City of Subiaco, because of the stewardship of the past, is in a really good place to be able to deliver this. And what you will have is probably $1.3 million going back to recharge the reserves, because we won't be paying for this building, and we'll be able to lease out Bishop Street as well. You mentioned the commercial properties. In addition to that, and you mentioned the rate that we're getting in terms of our term deposits, we're getting the best that we can. But in addition to that, we've also sought to invest in other managed funds through Aware Super. It's called, we had a discussion about that on Tuesday night. So we're looking to diversify our investment portfolio and to make sure that we're not just selling the farm and building one building. But those will be decisions for council in the future. But I can assure you the ongoing financial sustainability, which is always ranked very high. Time to wrap up. I think that's the Mayor turning me off. I'll shut up.
The trouble is that we will keep circling back, because the issue is...
So how do we not circle back, and how do we get onto the motions tonight?
Well, you hear what ratepayers have to say, Mayor. I think it was pretty...
I'm trying to help you.
Don't dismiss me, Mayor.
I'm trying to help you.
I saw the way you dismissed a previous councillor. I've never met before, and I thought it was pretty disgraceful, but I won't be bullied.
Okay, well, thanks for that perspective. What I'm asking is, how do we get the answer? How do we get the answer that you're seeking, so that we can move on to the motions which have been duly submitted prior to the meeting? Well, I don't think you call it interrupting when the chair asks how we move a meeting along.
Thank you, Mayor. So what I'm wondering is, you're embarking on a capital works project which is about 4 times the size of your annual capital works projects to date, and that is what you're going to have to manage. That's what you're going to have staff to manage. That's where it worries me in regard to the numbers and in regard to the expertise that you've got. And then, as my final question, to try and jump quickly to try and meet the Mayor's desire to get home to dinner.
Oh, hang on. Ask your question without the commentary, mate.
I can make what commentary I want.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to get home to dinner. I don't accept that. Come on, ask the question. There's other people who've heard enough as well. Well, I'm asking you to ask it now.
The costs, you've got in your professional fees $5.5 million out of the 65 million so far. You've also got $3 million in your project fees to date, plus your consultations and so on. So that comes to about 10 million on what would then be a total cost of nearly 70 million. That's a 15% fee structure, which is about double the normal commercial cost. So I'm wondering again, how are you going to manage projects which, as I've said, are about 4 times the annual size of anything you've previously managed, and how are you going to manage the budget within the cost structure?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I just did mention one project. I did work at the City of Thorn for 10 years, and their annual capital works is 150 million, and sometimes we do 3 pavilions in 1 year. So it's not the only project I've been involved in. So pretty confident that this size and scale can be managed. My job, as you know, under the law is to implement council resolutions, and so that's what I do. And as I said, we haven't yet got to that point, but we've given you, all the community, those costed, from a firm that knows what they're doing. Now, whether they turn out to be reality, as I said, we won't really know when the request for tender is advertised and appropriate companies put in their submissions, assuming council resolve to proceed. So, as I said, whether it's we get to that point sooner rather than later, that's when we'll know, but I'm confident that we'll be able to manage through this process with the expertise that we have in-house and externally.
Any final questions from the floor? Okay, we'll move on to motions now. Motions need to be moved and seconded and voted on, and each elector present at the meeting is entitled to vote on the matter, but is not required to vote. All decisions made at the annual electors meeting will be considered by council at the next ordinary meeting. So far, we've got three motions submitted prior to the meeting. I'll call them forward in the order they were submitted. First up, Josephine McPhee of Morgan Street, Shenton Park. It's going to be read by Peter McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and staff and everyone here. Josephine McPhee's been called away. Her son's birthday is tonight, and she's the guest of honour, I think, in terms of running proceedings. She's asked me to read the motion. The motion is that the city extend the... before I get into the motion, we would be amenable, Mayor, if you wanted to restructure the order of the motions. We're not aware of what other motions have been put up, and if you considered that we would get through the evening quicker with a different order of motions, we'd be quite happy to hear what you've got to say.
This is as good an order as any. Please carry on.
Thank you. The motion is that the city extend the public consultation period on the new civic building and gardens project until 27 February 2026. And is it okay for me to read the reasons at this stage?
Sure. Look, maybe I'll just say this for the benefit of everyone submitting. We'll put the reasons up on the screen if you wanted to talk to the motion to explain what's going on, you and the other people moving motions, that would make sense as well. So, yeah, please
Sure.
do.
Well, I know not everyone's seen the motion, so I'll just go on and cover briefly the reasons. The length of the existing consultation period we consider insufficient for a project of this scale and significance. It's acknowledged to be the biggest development project the city's undertaken. The timing of the consultation period encompassing part of this summer school holidays and the period leading up to Christmas and New Year is inconvenient, not only for residents but also for local businesses. And it runs up against some other pretty interesting events, such as the events the city's organising in the park, which I'm sure are going to be fairly popular. An extension of time will provide residents and businesses more time in which to provide feedback and give the city more time in which to respond. Now, just to speak to the motion, we've found the debate so far, and I think it can fairly be described as a debate, pretty interesting and informative, in fact. We're hearing new information tonight we didn't hear previously, and we're yet to, in many parts of our community, form a view, a solid view on what is happening. And we are getting new information literally every day. And the project itself has attracted quite a bit of publicity. Acknowledgements to the press in the corner there. Thank you very much for being here. I noticed that there's been front page articles on not only Western Suburbs Weekly, but also our much beloved Post. And that source of information is illuminating the debate as well. I don't think we need to be fearful of the debate. I think the debate will give us a better outcome in the final upshot. The other thing I'd notice about this project is that we're not under any compelling time pressure in the way that we were, for example, to find a cure for COVID. You know, there are some projects that come up where you're under really serious time pressure, and this is not necessarily one of those. I know that you've got staff to pay and that they're busily trying to move this process forward, but another bit of time while we hear this debate out, it seems to me, won't do the city a lot of damage, and there the case rests.
Do we have a seconder for the motion?
Oh, I'm the seconder. Joe McPhee was the mover.
Oh, I think you're moving it on. Hang on, Mark. I think you're moving it on behalf of Joe McPhee, I think technically, because she's not here. I mean, I should have asked earlier. Is there a seconder for the motion? Scott Arbuckle, thank you. Please carry on, Mr McDonald.
Thank you. The motion is addressed to the city, not to the council, firstly. Secondly, the council's next scheduled meeting is in February, I understand, late February, which is not quite at the termination of this period. But given that the current consultation period doesn't appear to have been set by council, it appears to me to have been set, the exact dates of the consultation, I suspect, have been set by the administration. It is open for the administration to consider changes to a creature of their own making. And on that basis, we've raised the motion. It is also open to the council on the vote of any 3 councillors to call a special meeting of council to consider this under the Act. That option is open, and we don't presume to think that that 3 councillors would choose to do that. But that option is open to the council should it wish to do so. Given that it's not a council decision as to what these consultation dates were in the first place, I don't know that it necessarily has to go to council. It could go to the city's administration. And so once again, the case rests.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. I think that sounds pretty good from my point of view. Okay, we've got to move in a second there. I think I will ask for a show of hands. All those in favour of the motion? Anyone against? Okay, 1 against and everyone else for, so the motion's comfortably carried. Okay, the second motion that we received was from Stephanie Stroud of Barker Road.
Yes, thank you. My motion has 4 parts, and I'll read it. The council at the next OCM consideration of the civil precinct proposal, which I've called the proposal, 241 Rockaby Road. First point, rejects the current proposal in preference to a scaled down design in both size and cost estimation. Point 2, supports a redesign of the council chambers. Point 4, respects the sanctuary of Rankin Gardens. And, sorry, that was point 3. And point 4, ensures full transparency of the project, full financial transparency of the project. And I'd like to talk to some of the reasons, thank you. In regard to rejecting the current proposal for a scaled down design, when I was on council and this project was first presented to us in an OCM, the officer report referred to a cost of just $15 to $20 million for approximately 3,000 square metres. Now, since that OCM, there's been no further reports by council in any of the meetings to suggest a change to that estimate. It's only occurred now in a public consultation process where we're looking at 3-fold the increase, it being 64 plus million. And everyone knows that governments overspend or costs overrun, as I've witnessed myself on council. The other point I want to make about scaling down the design is that the city of Subiaco is a small metropolitan local government with a population of just under 20,000 people. We are not Stirling Council or Joondalup Council. We're a very small metropolitan council. The planned size is approximately 2.4 times the size of the old admin centre and the current lease at Hay Street. Now, this 2.5 times does not seem to factor in the accelerating impact of technology and digitisation on the workforce, combined with the decreasing role of local government in planning. Administration surely is likely to require less office space than more. This proposal...
Sorry, just because your time's about to
Oh, really?
end, and I don't want you to end at an inconvenient time. Just press the button again and finish off the reasons.
Thank you. This project is not own. This proposal also is not the only project on the spend list. Under the council plan, we have for the next 10 years the revitalisation of the Lord's Recreation Centre, the refurbishment of the Shenton Park Community Centre, and the construction of the Mount Claremont Depot. We may be a wealthy council, but there appears to be no fiscal restraint by the city in an era of rising inflation and uncertainty. Now I'd like to address my second point about supporting a redesign of the council chambers. The suggestion that the council chambers floating on top of the pavilion represents a symbol of open and accessible democracy is disturbing. Instead, it seems to represent an undemocratic loftiness and detachment that will only serve to increase the divide between the city and the community. Consider, for example, the WA Parliament, when the gallery sits above the chamber as a reminder of the service to the people. No level of government should ever be presented as looking down on their community. The next point I'd like to make about the third motion, which is protecting the sanctuary of Rankin Gardens. The proposal's urban design appears to have identified the precinct into parts: the Memorial Clock Tower, the Rankin Gardens, the mature trees, the council chamber and administration, the museum and the library, with no apparent understanding or respect to their heritage and the embryonic relationship. Now, while historically the gardens may have provided the young municipality a venue for entertainment, the gardens have matured into a quiet, cool, green sanctuary from our busy urban life. The proposed urban redesigning with expansive hard surfacing and designated event spaces is insensitively over-designed and unnecessary. Regarding my fourth point of my motion, which addresses requiring full financial transparency, the proposal rightly claims this is the biggest development project the city has ever undertaken and the first significant capital investment it has made since the library was built in 1971. Surprisingly for a project at this early conceptual stage, with a schedule to start in mid-2028, with no mention, for example, of construction materials, that an estimate is provided to the nearest dollar, right down to $64,572,306. It is also concerning that the biggest development project the city has ever undertaken has exhibited no transparency on the design and estimate until the release of this public consultation. Since last May 2025, the last council decision where they appointed through tender an architect, all elected member workshops and briefings have been behind closed doors. For a project of this magnitude, ratepayers deserve a full financial transparency throughout the life of the project. Electors, I thank you for your time and I ask you for your support for my motion.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Okay, we've got our seconder. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, 2 against and the remainder 4. That's comfortably carried. Thank you, Ms Stroud. Okay, the final motion that was submitted ahead of time was submitted by Barry Failberg of Onslow Road, Shenton Park.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Colin, and fellow electors. This notion of motion has been put together in consultation with a number of previous councillors who have expressed concern about what's going on, and therefore it's not my motion, it's a collective motion thought through by others. And what we say is this motion calls for a rejection of the proposed design and attendant expense of the new civic buildings as advertised, and requests a redesign to reflect the following. Number one, as per the design criterion, to create a new but modest inspirational building which is fitting and harmonious in its garden setting. The current proposal is completely at odds with this vital principle, and I think we've heard that Michael Houston say how ugly the potential council chambers are in the proposal. So, secondly, we would like the design to eliminate a standalone intrusive council chamber, integrate the council chamber into the building design with single-storey height facing Rockaby Road and rising to the rear as needed. Not trying to tell you how to design these things, but there should be some principles. We believe that the design should maintain the current garden settings as per community wishes, and you'll get plenty of input on that. We believe the building is to achieve administrative needs, with community centre, cafe concepts and display areas to be a secondary consideration, not a primary consideration. There are underutilised community facilities elsewhere in the city to be upgraded to fulfil community needs and not to be a driver for the proposed new civic design. We also feel the design should reflect heritage characters of the suburb, which is why we all love living in Subiaco, including any possible refurbishment of the existing building. We believe some justification for the design needs to include reasons for a proposed increase of administrative area, and I might have the numbers wrong, but there is quite a big increase. And the cost of this project should reflect the community concern for responsible expenditure and not be seen as a Taj Mahal extravagance. So I would propose that motion.
Thanks for the motion. I'll look for a seconder.
Yes.
Okay, Paul Clements seconding. Sure. We'll hear from the seconder and then we'll put it to the vote. Mr. Clements.
First of all, I'd say thanks to the staff and the council for going through that process of the fire. Not easy to wake up Monday morning and have to do that and all that. So that brings us to where we are at this moment of the new proposal that's in front of us. Somehow or other, this proposal's just come to, as far as I know, everybody completely out of the blue. Now, I know we've got some resolutions back in 24 or something like that, but as far as the general public's concerned, their perception and their reality is that this has just come out of nowhere. So now we're getting people asking to call for extending the consultation, where I'm saying people haven't been asked about anything. That's what so it's the first time we've seen it. And the plans themselves, still to this day, have never been on an agenda. Why have those plans not been on an agenda? So all of a sudden we get the building, which is 3 times bigger than the old building. And we've got a very limited scope to say anything in this Christmas concert. they've got a lot of reservations. No particular order, but 5 years is a long while to wait to have a project finished. It's just a very long time. 64 million. I don't have to say any more about that. I'll flip through a few of these because they've been dealt with. The design, birdcage, whatever you like, got the potential for antisocial behaviour. The grounds, of course, everyone's sort of dislikes what's been proposed for the grounds. It's kind of perfect, and we've got 5.5 million put down for landscaping. We actually like it as is, and when there's 5.5 million in there, can see why people really are rising up against the plans that are here. There's a whole truckload of reasons. I visited the old building this week. We got, I believe, $2 million in insurance. It'd probably cost 12, 15 to replace, so it's by no means a write-off. And there is scope with that old building, and people with a lot of knowledge have got different ideas that you can incorporate that into some of the new services that you're trying to provide. The previous council, but I think the current council should revisit that decision and just re-examine, just to reflect what the community, many in the community, is saying that building's fine to go again. They're worried about centralised spaces when we should be having, the likes of the Palms refurbished and the likes of the other commercial community centres. They're worried about the operating cost of this massive building. Lack of consultation, that's been dealt with. So I won't go into it in detail, except to say that the information was sparse. We didn't have any plans. There were no plans provided with this whole consultation, no plans. There were some sketches. There were no financial plans. There was no business case on, are we going to rent out these buildings or whatever. We were told, yeah, we're going to. Oh, yeah. But there was no case, no justification to spend 64 million, not in front of us. That's why people are saying, we heard it, let's revert. Let's go back and pretty well see what we want to do, and go from there. Because this is not what the community wants to do. Of course, the community are furious about the timing of this consultation. You might say it was 6 weeks, but once you get consultation to build up ahead of momentum, and then you run into Christmas, there's a lot of people that wanted to be here tonight. There's 50 people here. There's a lot more people that wanted to be here, and they've got this, that, and the other, and schools and whatever, and they're furious over that, I can tell you. So out of all this, what do people want? We want to see alternatives. I mentioned the old building. We want to. We know that's big enough to have. We've got the same area here as in the old building. It works. So the old building is a factor. We want the community centres upgraded. The Palms, Shenton Park Licensing Centre. That's where we want to see action. We don't want a 5-year proposal for something that's really far too grandiose without justification. They want the facilities dispersed. They don't want them all. Various facilities. They want to be dispersed amongst the community. There's need now. There's been need for quite some time for the arts things we mentioned. you mentioned there, but they're not here, and they're not happening. Artist studios, a choir venue, and the women's shed. That's where the focus should be. Instead of getting on a 5-year program, it's just going to be the most horrible thing to watch if this thing ever proceeds, to sit back for 5 years and watch it while we fiddle around and miss other opportunities. We talk about investment, we talk about money, we talk about return on investment. This building here on 6,000 square metres of land sold for, if I can find it, 37,850. Now, so I know that's we're not going to buy this building, or I don't think we are. That's what we're looking at, a huge building here on 6,000 square metres of freehold land with 38 million. And you people are telling us that 65 million is a great investment. I mean, it's been reflected here with others that we could be biting off far more than we can chew, and sort of far more than what the community want. Just a couple of little observations. That renting is expensive and we're going to pay $1 million rent here. Well, if you've got 64 million in the bank at 4%, that's $2.5 million. So that pays the rent a couple of times. So, of course, spending this money on this project affects the ratepayers. It affects what we can provide in the way of services. It affects what we can earn on our investments. So undoubtedly it affects every ratepayer, even if the rates are kept on a nice trajectory of 1 to 2% or something. But our investments would be going backwards, our services would be going backwards. There's a couple of petitions that immediately rose out of the community. Straight away, boom, 2 petitions. One's got 350 signatures. The other one's got 90 signatures, and they'll be ongoing. You know, they won't stop now. We've gone far too far to get to this point, far too far. Plans coming out our ways, which had numbers, which had all that sort of stuff. So I believe it's been a flawed. It sounds to me like we've got too many bloody experts. If we've got people from the eastern states and people from here, and we've got the best of this and that, and the community is saying it's bad consultation. I mean, the people with experience in consultation in this room could have put up a better plan than this, and they wouldn't ram it into Christmas because they just realised that the community will be far too cynical to accept it. There's a whole heap of things that they could have advised on consultation, and so we've got what I'd say is a failed consultation. We really got to wind this project back to the point where the people of Subiaco can explain what they want, can be free and open. We talk about free and open. It hasn't been free and open when this plan hasn't been on the agenda, and the stuff you dished up didn't have plans. And the things I listed didn't have enough numbers, too many pictures, riding bikes without helmets. So I recommend the motion to the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've heard from our mover and seconder. Sure. Yes, please, and tell us your name and where you live.
This one here. Hi, Mr. Mayor, elected councillors and fellow ratepayers. Nice to meet you all. I'm going to be a new resident of Subiaco. I own a property in Gloucester Street we're currently building. I've listened to this robust debate. I'm very concerned that people are saying they're speaking for the community. I'm a part of the community. I don't feel you're all speaking for me. I believe that the new building is excellent. I believe that it is a concept design. I believe that you need to let the process play out. I believe the process has been fair. I work part-time in a government department. I can tell you that hot desking is appalling and horrible. It doesn't allow a connectedness to the community. I think keeping items in a locker is horrible. I think pushing back costs onto individuals in order to work from is unreasonable. I would also like to say, as relates to the garden, we have got shot hole borers, we have got increasing water pressure. I believe this is a chance for Subiaco to showcase native gardens. I have a big objection to the petition that is going around at the moment about scattering of ashes in the rose garden. There are places to do those things. I respect that some people have made some decisions, but you do not exert a private control over a public piece of land. And I think that I have a son who lives in this area. I have 2 grandchildren who go to school here who are aged 3 and 4, so technically kindergarten and daycare here. I think we owe something to the future residents of this city. I also think a civic building should be inspiring, and I think we should not be bound considerations. I trust that the people we've elected, which is our current councillors, with great respect to those who've been here before, you are not the current councillors, and I trust the city administration. I've also recently designed a house in Gloucester Street, and I've been through a fairly robust and at times tense process with the council officers over the local planning policy. And I understand that maybe at times that hasn't always been pleasant, but I think with advice from the architectural design review and with robust debate, we've come up with a design that fulfills the local area planning policy, but also is something that Subiaco should also be proud of, which is innovative architecture. You're always happy to showcase your new houses and your innovative architecture. I do take on board the point about the floating council office. That had not occurred to me before. Perhaps democracy should be at a lower level. But I think you've all got the opportunity to say that in the consultation process. So at the risk of holding people up further, thank you.
Mr Mayor, sorry, there was quite a personal comment made. May I have a very quick reply? It won't take long.
Sure.
Thank you. Also, can we please have the name of that person? Yes.
No.
Thomas. Sorry. Vicky Thomas.
Thought we asked that.
Hello, I just want to respond to one point made by Ms Thomas. I didn't just place my mother's ashes in the rose garden. I received written permission from the City of Subiaco in October 2020, allowing me to place those ashes. The second point I'll make is the petition that I've been promoting against the redevelopment of Rankin Gardens now has 401 signatures, and it is not about my mother's ashes. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay, we've heard from the mover and seconder and a speech against. I think most electors here are probably ready to vote on the motion now. So all those in favour? Anyone against? You got it? I'm pretty sure the motion's carried, so well done, Mr. Fahlberg. Are there any motions from the floor? Tony Costa. Hang on, maybe just wait till you get to the microphone so that we capture it on the video.
I was handed a document here titled "The motion is made on behalf of Caroline Bell, Elector of 17 Lawless Street, Subiaco." It's a basically simple one. The motion, the City of Subiaco introduce a 24, 7-day a week, 365 days a year security patrol service like the one currently operating in, dare I say, the city of Stirling. And qualifying that motion, Subiaco has the highest rate of crime of any suburb in the western suburbs. Council expenditure on such a service would greatly benefit everyone, protecting our homes, assets, and increasing personal safety. The City of Stirling Security Service provide a 24-hour hotline. They monitor and report suspicious activity and antisocial behaviour. They conduct regular patrols of crime hotspot locations and report damage and vandalism in their streets, and provide a holiday watch service involving external patrols of property whilst you're away. I also believe this service would be highly valued and supported by our community, Subiaco, and represent responsible expenditure of council funds. That's the body of the resolution, Mr. Mayor, and I think it's very timely that it should come, because for those of us that have lived as ratepayers and residents of this municipality would notice the comments which I've surmised. And for that reason, as one who's lived in this city since I came here as a 16-year-old, now at the geriatric age of 84, I can tell you there is a big, big problem with some of the behaviour and the law-breaking ratio that is going on in the municipality. And we as electors have a right to have some protection, and our council administration should be there to do just that. So, Mr. Mayor, that's the resolution, and I trust there will be somebody who will second it, and I'm happy to qualify.
Thank you. Okay, the motion's moved. I have a seconder for the motion. Stephanie Stroud, thank you. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, one against, so the motion's comfortably carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Democracy continues.
Any other motions from the floor? Stephanie Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a preface to this motion, I just want to tell you just actually how excited I was when I first heard that the council chambers and civic precinct was finally being released and for comment and so on. But it's unfortunate that it's got to this with disagreement, but I do hope that we can work it out. This statement is made on behalf of Caroline Bell, Elector of 17 Lawless Street, Subiaco. I'm a lawyer, local resident and a mother of 3 children who have all attended Subi Primary School. I love this suburb and its community, and am very disappointed with the insensitive timing of this annual electors meeting and the public consultation of the civic precinct proposal at Christmas, the busiest time of the year for family and work commitments. It is disappointing I'm not able to attend this evening. I have read all the documents for the civic building proposal, and I'm very concerned that insufficient information has been provided. I am particularly worried about the magnitude of the development, the exorbitant cost, and the destruction of the current gardens. My motion is to ask Council to reconsider this proposal and work towards a more economically appropriate and sympathetic solution with active input from the community.
Thank you. Okay, it's moved by Stephanie Stroud. Do I have a seconder? Roger Stroud. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, the motion's carried. Any other motions from the floor? We're at the end of tonight's agenda. Thank you, electors, for attending and for staying right through to the end. We will consider all those motions in the new year, and we will continue the consultation process on the civic precinct in the meantime. Thanks for joining us. I declare the meeting closed at 7:59 p.m.